So I would like to pivot to another topic that I feel is quite important in our company, and I think a lot of other smaller organizations that are looking to scale contend with as well. And that's leadership, right? And I think in the past 7 to 8 years, what I'm most proud of is that we've been quite open about the gaps that, say, you and I have in terms of limiting factors for our growth. And we very thoughtfully brought on a host of very strong leaders into the company. And I think that's actually one of the reflections of yours that I recall from last time, which is to say, if you were to have done this journey differently, you probably would have gone outside to find some strong leadership talent earlier in the future, so that we could bring that scale, that scale within the company, or rather the ability to scale within the company. So now that we have some of these leaders within the company, how do we make sure that they're successful? How do we ensure their success?
So, it's a very good question, but let me also footnote certain things.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer in talent, right? And I don't think anybody can dispute that there's a fundamental logic that smart, intelligent, committed people make things happen, right? So whether in anything, any walk in life. But there is always an instance in the history of the company where your ability to attract that kind of a talent is not always there, right? So if you wind back to the history of ELGi 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it would have been very difficult to get the talent that we are now beginning to attract to see and believe that story, right? Now we have evidence of that story. So that journey for a promoter or an entrepreneur is a little bit of a lonely journey, right? Nowadays, with the private equity investments coming in, credibility is brought in, so you're able to attract talent. That was not the case when we went through that. So to make the leaders, the talent successful is, you've been the jockey riding the horse, right? You can't occupy the saddle with someone else. You've got to get off the horse. Let people ride it, right? Which means step aside, guide, but don't ride, and that itself is a big challenge, because you're so used to conducting your life and your business in a particular way. You get into the visceral details, you feel comfortable with control and knowing the specific mechanics of the business. But now you got to step back and start defining a whole new set of metrics that ensures the success of what you used to do before, right? Without really putting your hand in it. Yeah. So that's a new muscle I hope I'm beginning to develop. You need to tell me. Let me ask you this. Now, you've been in the company now for 10 years. Do you think that I'm developing that muscle, or do you think I still have some ways to go?
Everyone can always improve, right? But no, but I think,
get the message. Okay.
No, but I think more seriously, absolutely. And I think I want to go back to what you had said earlier to come back to answering your question, because I think many of our leaders today come from larger, in some ways more global, more structured organizations, right? So in many ways, there is a deep level of trust in our North Star that's very attractive. And I think that's the message that I want to highlight here is even when you don't have the scale, right? The track record that you have as a promoter or a promoter group of committing to that North Star in terms of resources, especially as you go through stormy seas, is a very strong signal, I believe, for strong leadership talent to trust and frankly be energized about coming and being part of the journey to achieve the North Star. Because what we won't have, or rather what many promoter-driven companies will have overnight, is the institutionalized nature of a multinational where a leader can come in and just fit a particular role, put in 3-4 years and move away. There's a lot of security in being able to do that. But if you are that type of professional leader that wants more, that has looked at the equity that you have built in your career and the things that you have achieved, and you want to bring those skills and experience for a larger purpose, then a promoter-driven business with a very clear and proven North Star becomes quite attractive. And so I think, to pivot to your point about, have we and have you, kind of thoughtfully stepped aside but continue to govern, I think you have. And I think I think one of the things that you've done a good job of is the visible things, right? There are certain reviews, there are certain activities that you just no longer participate in, right? But you expect the outcomes of those activities, you expect to stay abreast of them, right? And also, I think that you've done a good job of understanding the essence of what makes us successful as a promoter-driven company, right? And I think certain nuances of being employee-centric, that may not be aligned with the by-the-book decision, right? I recall very recently we took a call on maternity leave for adoption, right? The by-the-book definition doesn't really treat maternity leave for adoption as it would, a natural child. But a parent doesn't think of it that way, right? And so this was an area where we came in and we said, look, there should be no reason as to why we should treat this differently, right? And that is a thoughtful deviation. So I think that you've done a very good job of balancing, right, governance with being able to influence certain decisions that actually allows those leaders to be far more successful, right? And it gives them another perspective to say, as I move higher up in the company, I now have a different decision-making mechanism in my mind that I will think through.